I'm Brandon Clark. This is my co-host Swall Hall, and today we're meeting on Uncommon Grounds. We've had another chaotic week, which is about the norm for Trump, so maybe not chaotic comparatively, right? But we have a meeting with generals, an unprecedented type of rally, if you will, which we'll get into first. Then we have a deal potentially between Israel and Hamas. If Trump tells it, it's signed and sealed and gonna happen, or else, and if the other sides tell it, well, there's things that still need worked out. And then there's a Saudi comedy controversy that Swa is real excited to get into. We're going to discuss, see where we agree and disagree on the controversy. And then Swa, if you guys watched last week, I was on the hot seat about Israel-Palestine. I don't know if I left it in the episode, but Swall recommended he go on about his religious faith. So we're going to do that at the end of the episode. So stick around. That's always sure to get spicy with a Catholic and an atheist. So first, we have the meeting with generals. Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, called a rather impromptu and unprecedented meeting of almost 800 generals for people. It was to kind of just stoke the fires and momentum. And people weren't really sure what it was going to be about until they all met. And then, like, there was moments that were bad because it's like, what are we doing, right? You have Hegseth talking about beardos and getting rid of fat generals, and it's like, okay, this is weird, but it's MAGA, whatever. And then there's like the really bad stuff, like Trump saying use cities for training grounds. We're fighting a war with the enemy within, and it all kind of centered around wokeness and fighting those here who disagree with Trump. Kind of crazy. Swa, as you know, the moderate but still conservative on the podcast. What goes through your mind when you see this?
Well, first I thought this was just kind of strange. I'm not familiar with this type of thing really happening in US history, at least not in recent
Yeah,
years or decades to my knowledge.
yeah.
It seems like a lot of the people were staying silent, somewhat out of duty and somewhat out of just like what is happening. um, and I'm not sure really what the goal was as far as like was it just to kind of update everybody on what is I don't really understand kind of what he was trying to do with it. It seems like he was just sort of trying to like, when people like are flash their gun when they're like
Yeah,
maybe about to get in a fight with somebody. I think it was just sort of like flexing, I
yeah.
guess.
It's like
But
a morale boost, I think, is like
yeah,
what they were talking about.
and like I'm cool with the military in general and having a strong military. So like I'm not opposed to us like saying look at America's military, but it I don't know. I'm a little confused on what the goal was here. It
What do you
seems
think about the official rebrand to Department of War?
that's a little bit. I mean, I guess that's when we're going to be, using these guys and using the soldiers is for wars, and so I'm not completely opposed, but it seems like it's aggressive for no reason at all. I guess the optics of it are strange. Department of Defense, that works better because it makes it seem like we're not going to be the aggressor. But Department of War seems like we're just going to be warmongering. Um, so yeah, I don't really have much to say on this other than what was the point of all of this, I guess.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. I kind of want to get into some of the things
The
they.
actual stuff that he was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, some of the things they unveiled too was when he was there. One of the things that he said, we're doing a new physical standard. He specifically says we want the highest male standard. He also conveniently they cut an advisory panel for women in the military. So and I don't know if you heard them Swall, but there's obviously the past comments of Pete Hegseth about women shouldn't be in combat and all of this. So that's kind of stirred up some controversy. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you are a Catholic, so you might agree with. I'm not sure, but what do you?
Yeah. That's a tough one. So yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody disagrees that we want strong soldiers. So that's a pretty milquetoast thing to say. But saying that we want specifically male ones doesn't bother me so much. Like you said, as a Catholic, I don't really want my women going off to die. I don't think that that's what women should be doing. I think that women should be staying at home and taking care of their families and stuff just here in our nation. Um, think back to some of our classical wars stories, and you talk about women um, like I don't know, doing the bullet casings or sewing uniforms and doing stuff like that, rather than going on the front lines. Of course, we live in America, so it's a free country. If a woman wants to be a soldier, I don't think that we should necessarily stop her. But as far as like culturally, I would prefer if women would stay here and not go out there and risk their lives and
I'm
face
curious.
such horrible
I'm
things.
curious why. Like, what do men have, I guess, culturally, or that women don't have culturally, that they're the ones that should stay and not the men? Like, why isn't it, men should stay and women should go and fight?
Yeah, so it's less culturally and more either genetic or obviously just from my spiritual leanings. So genetically, we can talk about muscle mass, we can talk about testosterone. Um, Men seem to be able to be more like emotionless in general, and so I think that can help with seeing such horrific
I don't know if I agree with that.
stuff.
I don't know if I agree with
Um,
that. Men commit suicide
well,
at much higher rates.
Sure. When I say, yeah, and I would argue, lack of concern for what that suicide is going to do to their loved ones. They're not concerned about people's feelings as much. It would seem. Um,
Okay.
and then as far as spiritually speaking, obviously, I think that a man's job is to be a leader and to sacrifice for people who are um, either less strong or less capable to do certain things. So I just think that that's sort of men's role in society is to
Sure, but then
sacrifice and do these harder tasks and jobs.
if a woman passed the test or whatnot, then she wouldn't fit into that role then. So then what would your objection be for those? I know you're saying obviously like, you're not like hardline ban women, but like
No, no, no.
just in like the spiritual sense, like if a woman was able to pass any test that a man was, what is the objection then?
Yeah, like I said, it's also mixed with the genetic stuff, and that kind of goes in with the spiritual because we believe men and women are just called the different things, and it goes all the way down to their cells and their body and how they're genetically uh, dispossessed, I guess is the term. So I just think the temperament of most women. Now, I'm not going to say every woman. Um, it's just not suited. It's just not aligned with that type of horrific stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the
But
successes we've had since we've had women in combat would disagree with you. But a part that I think we would agree on more, P. Hegseth also had, or he's announced that he's going to have the generals and troops sign NDAs, and they're going to do polygraphs to kind of prevent leaks. What's your thoughts when you hear something like that?
NDAs doesn't bother me. Polygraphs does mostly because the science on those things is that they don't even really like. It's pretty easy. We've all seen TV shows and stuff. It's pretty easy to get past those things if you just keep your heart, I think, steady or at a certain rate. I'm not exactly sure, but we know that those things can be tricked. So I think the polygraph is just a waste of time,
Well, see, so
resources.
the point was kind of to stop whistleblowers, though, who would be reporting like, like abuses or power or something. Does that not scare you at all? Like that we might not have that ability or the transparency with what's going on. I mean, Hegseth out there was like, he was kind of like, oh, international law, who cares, And Trump saying, political correctness is why we lost wars. We're not politically correct anymore. Like none of that kind of brings fear to you.
So you're saying the NDAs would stop them from exposing anything that's going negatively in our own military
Yeah,
rather than
it's
exposing like
specifically,
trade secret type of thing?
yeah, they can't put forth anything without going to like Hegseth first. Like you have to go to the top. No public like no kind of information whatsoever can get out.
Yeah, that's definitely scary and a thin line to walk because on one hand, like I said, I don't know. I'm not in the military. I don't know what NDAs and rules and laws there already are about military secrets and all of that. But like, I think we would all agree to some level. I mean, you're going to want some level of classification with military
Mhm.
um,
Documents or
executions and
whatever.
just yeah,
Yeah.
like and so I would definitely want there to be NDAs, but I don't want it to be like you literally can't tell
Yeah.
anybody about
So
anything immoral that's happening
the
either.
problem is
So
it's not limited to just classified stuff. It's just any
yeah,
information that you can't let out, which I'd be fine if it's just
yeah,
classified. But
yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah,
point it's like anything, it's like, I don't know.
yeah. So if it was just classified, I'd support it. Since it's anything, I think it's either sloppily written or intentionally written to be abused. So yeah, I wouldn't align with that at all.
Do you have any other points you wanted to make about the whole military revamping rally stuff?
No, I just hope that the soldiers and the generals and everybody remembers that their loyalty is to the Constitution and to our republic, and not to the person who happens to be the front man in the front of our country, and to just be wary of these types of situations. I'm not necessarily saying that anything super immoral or crazy was happening here, but optically, it's definitely peculiar. So
Yeah, yeah, it's I hope that their loyalties remain in the same place. I'm sure many will, but I don't know, with how they're firing people, it also might scare some if their livelihoods are on the line. On to the next though. Also kind of in relation to our military, though I guess not directly, but possibly in terms of what could spill over, is the Middle East stuff. Trump had announced I'll say, with quotations, because he first announces this deal as if like it's official, it's locked in, or I should say first he announces that there is a deal and he puts pressure on Hamas. Like if I'm going all the way back, he puts pressure on Hamas. He says, hey, if you don't agree with this, or if you don't agree to this by Sunday, you'll regret it, whatever, right? A couple days go by, Trump comes out, he says both sides have agreed, Hamas is ready for peace, Israel has to stop bombing. As we're coming to find out, both sides kind of have their own parts that they've came out and said, hey, like, I can agree to some of this, but we don't agree to all of this. Hamas has said we're fine to release the hostages, we're fine with that, but the later negotiations, we definitely need to iron out more. Israel has came out and said we're in no way signing off on a Palestinian state. So that kind of seems to be the two friction points right now. I guess just starting there, Swa. What are your thoughts on just the deal getting announced, the contents of it, where we're at so far?
yeah, so I had first found this out actually from Catholic news because on October 5th, at the close of the Mass, Pope Leo had actually called on world leaders to commit themselves to solving this situation and had called specifically for Hamas to agree to the deal. And then it had said 4 hours later, it came out, or Trump came out and announced that both sides had agreed. But like you said, I had thought, okay, cool, we got peace, but as I researched more, it turns out, like you said, no. Well, this group kind of agrees with maybe 40%, 50%, and the other side agrees with a different 40, 50. So it'll be curious to see if this actually ends up like sticking together as a solid deal. Obviously, we all want that to happen. Um, but I think it's important to note, like you said, that the Israelis weren't willing to even grant that the Palestinians could get their own state. I think that a two-state solution is the only solution at this point that is going to work. So I think that Israel needs to play ball on that, or else I think this deal is going to fall apart.
And we had, since it was announced and Trump came out and said, bombs have to stop dropping, Israel has still dropped bombs. Surprise, surprise. Dozens have been killed. When I read this was, I think a day or two ago, it was like 71, 72 that had been killed since this was announced. So it seems that like Israel isn't going to stop. And despite them not stopping, Trump has gone on to post and say, it seems like Israel is stopping and all of this. So it seems like kind of akin to when he first came into office and there was a peace deal or the ceasefire, and
Right.
Israel just was bombing throughout that as well. It seems like a lot of the same here.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that that's not the case and that something can actually happen here. The Catholic Church has had a habit of calling out Israel's tactics during all of this. I think initially they had the high ground as far as going in after October 7th after a vicious attack. But over the what is today? Is today the 7th?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, over the
Yeah.
last year, um, we've seen that even when some of the hostages were returned, and even when it's basically just dust out there at this point, they continue to attack, and now it's starting to turn into somewhat of a massacre. I still think it's ridiculous to act like one side is just completely innocent in all of this. I just looking at the last 100 or so years of this battle, it's just not the case. And so I don't think anybody's blameless, but I do think that Israel needs to uh, take a look in the mirror and own up to some of the stuff that's going on. You can't have a peace deal and then have troops on the ground actively killing the opposite side. That's not a peace deal. So
What do you think is going to have to happen to make Israel want to play ball? Where, I mean, historically, they always seem to think I'm on the high end of the power imbalance, so I don't really have to play ball. What do you think needs to happen where now they're saying, yeah, we're not going to let a Palestinian state happen? They're still bombing after they've been asked to stop. Like, I mean, I think we covered on one of the episodes how many countries now recognize a Palestinian state, their sovereignty. International pressure has definitely turned against Israel. Even Trump, in announcing this, there's like reports that within his administration, he's talking about wanting to kind of like revamp Israel's image. And that's like a large reason why he's so dead set on doing this. But none of that seems to change what Israel's doing. So, what do you think has to happen to sway them?
We need the Trump Gaza resort. That's what we
Yeah.
need. No. Um, um, yeah, I think I would disagree that historically Israel hasn't been willing to pay bull, but I think in the most recent decades that's certainly become the case. And I honestly think that it's a sort of a both sides situation there where there's been 100 years of hatred back and forth. I mean, it's hard to imagine either side being willing to give to the opposite when they've killed their brothers and sisters and mothers and daughters. And so I don't know. I don't know what's going to make Israel say, actually, yeah, we can just let these guys have their own country. They can grow their own military and become a big nation just like us, and that's just going to be fine. I mean, and I blame them, but on the other hand, I don't blame them because, yeah, I mean, they've been having rockets going into them for the last 80 years or different attacks, if not rockets. And so, what confidence do they have that if this happens, that the Palestinians aren't just going to grow and then try to overtake Israel again? And then on the Palestinian side, obviously, they've been getting dogged on and been the little guy for so long that why do they think that Israel's just going to stick to a deal and not just start, expanding their settlements or something? So I don't know is the ultimate answer there, but I hope that, like I said, Israel can come to its senses.
At what point do you think like international pressure actually needs to be put on Israel, whether it be like real sanctions, whether it be like, hey, we're gonna take you out of the UN, whether it be like maybe extraditing these cases in the ICJ? At what point do you think these actions should actually be taken?
Yeah, if this current peace deal we're dealing with happens, and I'm not sure how much of it will know in the public of like what was being offered, but if overall, excuse me, the vibe is that it was a fair deal that was reasonable and Israel walks away, then I think that's the cap right there. I mean, we're already at 100 years, give or take. It's not like they need a second chance here. Like we should be
And
pretty ruthless, I think.
what about would that include for you USA then, like with the Iron
1000%,
Dome and such like that? They would be
1000%,
yeah.
1000%, because I care about human life. I don't. I mean, I want to honor deals, and I don't know the ins and outs. Maybe there's reasons that we couldn't just stop giving aid totally or whatever. Um,
No,
because
they're just
obviously
an
we
ally.
don't want to go to war with them or go to war with anybody. So, but yeah, if it's as simple as we literally have the power to say no, then I think we should. If they're not willing to play
We give
ball,
Israel aid mostly because it's like just geopolitically strategic. Obviously, they're in a region with a lot of countries that are antithetical to kind of our
right,
beliefs and our
right.
economics and stuff like that. And Israel is the ally in the region. They give us a position with like the oil, with to normalization with these other countries. So I definitely, like I've said in other episodes, I definitely think they are a good ally in terms of like
I agree.
strategic reasons. But yeah, I mean, it's against, we shouldn't be sending aid to countries committing war crimes. And in my opinion, they're doing genocide. So I think that like it's crazy to me that we're just hand waving it. And Trump especially is just like, I mean, now I guess you can't say it as much with when he's like, releasing the peace plan and stuff. But like throughout his presidency, he's been saying like, yeah, we're gonna put a resort on Gaza and we're gonna kick the Palestinians out and never let them back. And that just like enables this kind of stuff to continue to a way that I thought Biden was bad on the issue, and like Trump is just so much worse. It's crazy. I knew he would be, but he's worse than I even thought he would be.
Telling you, man, we about to be vacationing any year now.
Yeah, right. You're gonna take a fly on Israel Airlines to the Trump resort in Gaza for sure, with
Wild,
not a
wild.
single Palestinian in sight. Yeah, so I don't know. I always, free Palestine. 66,000 people were dead. Almost 20,000 of those are children. Um, I think it's definitely a genocide. I've talked about this time and time again, so I don't have to give my whole spiel. But my heart goes out to the people in Palestine. I definitely hope things change, and I only can hope that Israel sticks to this deal and that Trump can be a good arbiter in making sure that they do so. Did you have any
And
last
yeah,
thing?
I mean, mostly ditto. Obviously, I don't want anybody to die at all. And so, yeah, I just hope that we can come to some sort of end to this really, really, really drawn out situation. So,
So staying in the Middle East, let us know what's up with the Saudi controversy. Let us hear it.
yeah. So, speaking of other people in that area, yeah. So, the Saudi Arabia is trying to embark on a rebrand. Vision 2030 is what's called. And as part of that, they recently had a comedy festival. I think it was last weekend or maybe the weekend before called I'm going to butcher this, Riyadh Comedy Fest, and they had like a bunch of American comedians or just Western comedians: Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, Louis C.K., Pete Davidson, all the big names and guys that we know. Um, and the thing that was controversial about it mainly was that obviously the Saudi Arabian government had a lot of rules and regulations for what these comedians were allowed to say. And because of that, they weren't allowed to critique like the government, any of the princes, or anything like that. I think it even said like uh, celebrities or basically anybody of note in Saudi Arabia or any cultures or holidays or customs. And so they basically had to stick to roasting their own countries and stuff back at home. Um, and the thing about it is, these comedians have all made a habit out of talking about how there's basically no free speech in America anymore, and you can't make a joke without blah 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 blah. Um, which I never bought into, never thought was really true because here they are saying this.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and yet, I'm trying to remember what's his name, the ginger comedian, but he like explained. Oh, Bill Burr. He like told us some of the stuff that they weren't allowed to talk about, which is some of the
Mhm.
stuff I just regurgitated. And it's like to ignore all of these what I would call a human rights violation of free speech, and just to pretend that everything's great in Saudi Arabia and it's such a happy place is just disingenuous, and it kind of calls into question any of their political statements or motivations when they're so easily bought by this festival. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. If you think the Saudi government is valid in being able to, say you can't roast our politicians or any of our practices here, but I think that they're silencing the truth, and I don't think that it's morally right, personally.
Yeah, no, I think that's crazy. I think like especially comedy is like in part about critiquing power and like making it funny, and it's like a way to use your speech in like a way that can resonate with people. And I'm all for that. And that's why like, and I agree with you that I think a lot of these comedians, the ones that I read were there, are kind of just crybabies about a lot of the things they talk about. They just like making jokes that are like maybe distasteful to some people, which I'm like, I'm not as like, I don't know, woke or whatever on the like I grew up like watching comedy shows, so it's like if you make like crazy jokes, they're funny. It's comedy. You know what I mean? What I don't
Right.
like is if like you're saying something that isn't even funny and you're just like it's comedy because it's dark or disrespectful or something like that.
Sure.
But a lot like Dave Chappelle, will say some shit like that. But it's just like if you also just like look at the jokes he makes. It's like you can kind of probably understand why some people are upset with you, man. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe just have some self-awareness. I do think it's a bit weird that you would go to a country that has all of these restrictions if that is supposedly something that means so much to you. And then like in America, the thing is they're always like, oh, cancel culture is real, but I'm the brave guy who fights
Right.
against it. And still, so why didn't you do this then? Right? Like, why didn't you go there and critique Saudi Arabia? It's almost like these people just like punching down on minority groups when it's easy.
And I forget which one of them said it, but one of them was like bragging about how like I couldn't make the. I think one of the jokes was I can't make this joke in America or something.
Yeah.
Brother, what? Like, yes, you can. We might all roast you. You might get canceled on Twitter or something. But as far nobody's throwing you in jail. Like,
Yeah.
if any of these comedians had decided to go after any of the, like, we might have some international incident,
Yeah.
and that's what we'd be talking about.
We'd have the next negotiation for a hostage swap
Right.
and everyone getting mad and yeah.
Right. And so that's what was just so distasteful to me. It was like, okay, so all these guys are fake.
Yeah.
Now they've shown their true colors. It reminds me of when all those right wing or moderate, like if you count Dave Rubin or whatever, got busted for being, was it Russia who was paying him,
Russia.
or
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so embarrassing, dog. Like,
Yeah. And so they got paid to do this and stuff too, right?
yeah,
And
oh yeah. Oh, they
yeah.
were bragging about how nice they were treated and how clean everything was and blah 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, because this is straight propaganda, dude.
So what do you think that says about the cancel culture warriors in America? Does that kind of defeat the
Wind
whole
out of the sails. I mean,
yeah,
I never thought it was a free speech as far as like power with the government sort of thing. I always thought it was just like a cultural bug that I wasn't a fan of. And so I've always, and that's how I feel about a lot of my politics are cultural based. I want to change it in the individuals. I don't particularly think that a lot of our laws are um, stuff that I have problems with. It's more of what is the actual culture doing. And so I think there's still a validity to, I think it's weird to find some dude you're arguing with on Twitter, go find where he lives, find his place of
yeah,
employment, find the email, contact the guy, and get him fired. It's like
yeah.
you have too much time. So that's my thoughts.
Did you see the whole online thing with the website was made where they're finding people who were talking about Charlie Kirk?
No, but that's pathetic.
Yeah, there was like a whole, they had like a database and they had all these people's names and it was like the
Gross.
jobs and somebody was like going through person by person and like calling their job and getting like hundreds of people
That's
fired every day.
That's disgusting and cringe. Like it's so lame. I was calling out people when it was happening, and they were like, "It's been happening to us for so long. Now we're gonna give them a taste of their medicine." And
Yeah,
I'm
and it's
like,
like, no, it hasn't. I don't know. My
"Okay,
my
bunch of
thing is,
babies."
and I agree that in some places cancel culture did go too far, but it's like there's cancel culture and then there's also like valid, like I don't know the word. I guess if you want to say canceling, like if somebody's like online, like saying the N-word and they work in like public service, that might be someone worth firing. I don't know. Like I know, and I think we've had this disagreement before, Schwa, when we were
Well,
talking
my
about
subtle
the Nazi
disagreement
thing.
is I don't care about them being fired. It's the means in which it happens. Like if you're friends with your boss on Facebook and you post that dumb stuff, I don't care if you get fired. That doesn't bother me. It's the going out of your way, like creeping on their page,
Yeah.
copying and pasting, email. It's like that's the weird behavior that I'm saying is like I just don't think it's even like I don't think it's good for the individual to be that obsessive about. Like I just think it's weird and too far. Like, just
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree.
there's
That
a
is,
difference between those two things.
I agree. All my thing would be like if it's someone in the public or someone who might actually be affected by it,
Now, if
I'm
it's a
fine with it.
danger thing,
But yeah, if
that
it's
I
like
definitely think that's
if
fine.
if you're like watching this show and you're living in Alaska or Florida and
Right.
you're like, oh, Swa or Brandon said something I
Right,
don't
right.
like, and yeah,
Schwa said women shouldn't join the military, and now like I can't work at the movie theater. Like
yeah,
that is weird. That shouldn't be happening. I don't think.
yeah, no, I completely agree. Okay, guys, sorry, technical difficulties. We're back now, though, here for the hot seat. As I briefly kind of explained at the beginning of the episode, Swa is going to be on there. Just again, briefly, if you've seen these before, the last couple times we've done them, they've been over multiple topics. Last week, we did it over one topic, Israel-Palestine. That was kind of fun. So Swa thought he would take the hot seat this week and we would talk about Catholicism. I pronounced it right this time. I always say it wrong. So yeah, for those who haven't seen it, I have questions lined up. Kind of my critiques of the Catholic religion, of maybe the different beliefs and things that are associated with it. Swal will have his time to explain. Yeah, that's without further ado, we'll hop right in. Swal, I mean, if you want to, do you want to like say anything before?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm going to answer these questions to the best of my ability as a faithful Catholic, but I am not a trained theologian, not a clergy, not an apologist, or anything like that. I have no authority. I'm just going to be, trying to use catechism and my knowledge and my catechesis. So don't come for me, Catholics, if you find this and I get something wrong.
Yeah, no, it's just a podcast, guys.
Right, right.
So yeah, my first one is if the church is so consistently on the wrong side of many scientific discoveries, the ones I have listed are they denied the earth revolved around the sun when that was first discovered. They denied the earth was billions of years old when that was first discovered. They insisted on divine creation over evolution for years when that was first announced, I guess, discovered. All of which obviously they were wrong about. if and I know we agree at least on some of that. We agree on most of science being valid. How do you consider it a credible source of truth or interpretation of God's word or truth if they've been so wrong about true things so many times?
Yeah, so as Catholics, we don't believe the church's job is science at all. We don't think that the church is infallible when it comes to anything that doesn't have to do with our faith and morality. So it can be wrong on all sorts of number of things. Um, and the good news is the church never dogmatizes any scientific positions. So, like right now, as a Catholic, you can be a young Earth creationist, which I think is dumb, but you can be that, or you could be what I am, which is a like I believe in evolution, but I believe obviously that God set it in motion, and so you can have a wider range of beliefs on these sciences, and so it doesn't really bother me at all that these men were products of their time when it comes to science and technology and those types of questions, and so I kind of it's kind of compartmentalized for us Catholics.
Sure. So, and the follow up, because my problem there is because I get that much, but when God is supposed to be all knowing, and the church is supposed to be this body or like interpreting force of God and His knowledge and His
Hmm.
word,
Hmm.
wouldn't they then, through God being all knowing, shouldn't they know basic science?
I mean, this would just be to presuppose what God would give us and give the church, and that's just not described in any of our scriptures where God says, "I'm going to make you know all the knowledges of science." That's just not. It's just not a part of it. We can speculate why God didn't give us the ability to be right on everything with science, but at most it would at best it would be speculation. Interestingly, you did I don't know if you brought it up, but like the Big Bang, for instance, was postulated by a Catholic priest, and some of the science things, while
Denied
the
by the church,
church
though, also
that's what I was going to
originally.
say. While they would receive pushback from the church at large, a lot of the things that you mentioned were by Catholics or Catholic priests themselves. So it's not like
Not a
Catholics
lot
are
of them.
straight
A
up
lot of them
opposed
were
to it. But
religious. Well, a lot of them were religious just as products of their time, where most people
sure.
were religious. But a lot of them were more like deist, or they just kind of, believed in a creator rather than, like a specific God. My next question is kind of on that also, though, like because if Scripture is supposed to be from God, the church is obviously, as we spoke, is supposed to be like this body interpreter of God, and God is this all-knowing being. How do you kind of reconcile with the fact that everything in the Bible, these scientific falsehoods that the church has espoused, why are they also dated to the time period that they're made? Wouldn't that kind of rather show man without divine revelation kind of making these things rather than them being led by the divine revelation that is presupposed?
Can you give me an example? I'm not sure exactly what you're pointing to here.
Yeah, like they thought that, well, for one, like in the scripture it's all over like men shouldn't lay with men. That was the cultural norm at the time.
Oh,
There's also things in the scripture like about the earth having a crust and a firmament. That was also like the belief at the time. It's in the Bible that the earth came before the sun. That was the belief at the time. Things that are very dated to the period in which these things were made or brought forth by the church. Wouldn't divine revelation give them some sort of foresight that the rest of us wouldn't have?
so a few of the things that you listed are kind of in slightly different uh, categories, but I would say something like the men laying with men and that being a cultural norm. And Christianity and Catholicism, there's this idea that the pagans, the non Christians, have God's laws and the truth of God laid on their heart. And so we will come to truths and moral truths. And that's why, people ask, like, oh, if I'm an atheist or whatever, you don't think I can be moral? We do think you can be moral. And we think that it's laid on every human's heart and on their minds. And so it's not strange that some of the Christian beliefs would be widely held even by non Christians of the time, because
Okay,
people
then why has
tend
the
to
world moved
coalesce
away from that?
around. Um,
If that's the case and we're supposed to move towards that, why has the world moved away from many of those beliefs?
yeah, I mean, the world has fallen, and so people are going to do what they're going to do, and people are going to fall into sin and have views that go against the church. We've had a Reformation, Protestant Reformation. There's protesters. They call themselves Protestants. Their whole identity is protesting the church, and a lot of atheists and people of secularism come from Protestant traditions, and so they kind of have this anti-Catholicism and anti-Christianity baked into them,
Yeah, I
culturally
don't know if I would
speaking.
agree with that because as we moved away from those, we also like being ravaged by disease and death also became less common. And I would think those would be things associated with being plagued by sin. I'll let you, I don't want to feel like I'm railroading. I'll let you respond and then I'll have my next question.
I I don't
I
know
don't know
what
if
you
you
meant
had anything.
there.
Okay.
Uh,
I just didn't want to leave on like, a last word and then you're like,
sick. No, no. I mean, I don't know. Sickness and all of that is not attributed to sin. In fact, Jesus is asked. There's these dudes who are building something, and I think the building falls on him, and the disciples are like, what's their sin, or what was the sin of their parents?" And Jesus dispels that idea. So Christians don't believe that like something bad happened to you because you sinned
sure.
or
So
you're a
then
sinner.
what are the symptoms or evidences that would point towards the world falling into sin? What should we see if that was the case?
Like from a secular standpoint, would be the evidence like
Yeah, like
throwing out
from your faith,
the
like
biblical, or allowing for the biblical. I mean, obviously, as a Christian, I'm going to point to the Holy Scriptures and the
well, that's what I
testimony of
mean
the
is like what
church.
is attested, like what should be seen in that time? Like what is in your faith, the belief of like when the world falls into sin, we'll know because
Oh, I mean, the world has been in sin for all of human history, so I'm not sure what you're asking exactly there.
well, I
We,
asked
we would
because
expect
I
death.
said
We would
that I
expect
said the world has moved.
murders, and
Yeah, I said the world moved away from Christian beliefs, right? You said that people will
yeah,
find
yeah,
the
yeah.
truth, and that's the thing, and that's why people held these beliefs prior
Well,
to
yeah,
Christianity.
I wasn't saying that everyone will necessarily come to truth. I was just saying it's not strange that people arrived at similar conclusions. But if I'm understanding your question correctly, we can just look at the things that are antithetical to Christian teaching, and that tells us that we're living in a society that's antithetical to Christian teaching. So
Sure.
I don't know if that answered correctly, but
Why do you think prayer is such a statistically useless practice? Like controlled studies across the board show identical outcomes between praying believers and non-praying non-believers.
yeah. So a lot of people have misconceptions on prayer. A lot of people think of it as like a genie or a magic some sort of magic talisman to get what you want, and we don't view prayer as that way as Catholics. Um, we believe that prayer is an opportunity to align your will with God. It's you talking with God and wrestling with God and trying to align your will to His. So it's not. A lot of people have it reversed where they try to get God to align with their will to make things happen, but that's not really what the purpose of prayer even is. It's to have a communion with God
Sure.
here on
So
earth, and to
what's the
talk with
point
Him
if
and
that doesn't
align your
lead to
will.
any better outcomes?
Well, it does lead to better outcomes. It
It's not
uh,
statistically shown to.
well, it depends on what kind of outcomes you're talking about. I'm talking about aligning your will with God. That's the better outcome. So it may be that through prayer and fasting, somebody who struggles with like same sex proclivities or whatever is able to remain celibate and live a holy and chaste life. That would
Yeah,
be
that's
the
insane.
desired outcome, for
Yeah,
instance.
that's insane. Okay. Why do you think God took so much time condemning homosexuality? He does so multiple times in the Bible, but there's not a single scripture dedicated to condemning slavery, and there's actually multiple explaining how you can do it.
Sure. So this is where we're going to talk about products of their time. We have these things called disciplines and prudential judgments. And it may be that there's a moral principle that we allow for certain ways to apply it given the circumstances. So, like a good example of this is the death penalty. The church used to say that it was totally fine for the state to do the death penalty um, in light of the fact that we couldn't, stop these people necessarily from committing mass crimes. We didn't have the prison systems that we have in the modern day. And so now that we have those prison systems, it's no longer admissible to support the death penalty. And so at the time, um, as God was working with the Israelite people, that's when most of the slave verses you're referring to take place. They were in a certain um, climate, we should say, social climate, to where God didn't give them the full moral truths all at once. He unfolded it over time. So,
Right. So homosexuality before slavery, right? That's the bigger one. Let slavery happen. That's cool, but homosexuality, we got to take care of that one, right?
I mean,
Why? Why? Why does that take priority?
I mean, I don't know the ways of God. I can't say why which rules were given at what point. Why didn't we have Jesus at the beginning?
Right.
There's a lot of things we
Do
could
you think
question.
God thought slavery was morally permissible and homosexuality wasn't?
No,
Then why did he permit it? Why did he explain how to do it in multiple scriptures?
he explained ways of how to do it, going back to the principles of human dignity and how to do it in ways that weren't as egregious as like what we would see in like the antebellum South, for instance.
No,
And
no, no.
so
He specifically tells you how to do it. There's also times where he explains like you can go into war and like the virgin women you can take. And then like that's in Deuteronomy. And then in Numbers, he explains how you can sell those. You can sell the people you take. So like no, no, he's talking about owning people as property. There's scriptures where he talks about you can beat them within an inch of their life. And if they live, you shouldn't be punished, right? You shouldn't be given the rod. Why? Why, if he doesn't think slavery is morally permissible? Why all of that?
yeah, I mean, like I already answered. I said that he was bringing the people closer and closer and closer to the desired outcome, and
So how
so
do you do
it
that?
was baby steps
How
rather
do
than
you do
everything
that?
all at once.
How do you do that? By explaining to them how they can do it, who they can do it to, and that they can get away with it if they can get away with torturing and beating the slaves if they live.
I don't understand what you mean. How do you do that? Like I
How is
said,
that getting
he
them
could have
towards the
said
desired outcome of no
he could
slavery?
have. For instance, we have like the 7 year jubilee, where you let the slave go at the seventh year, and so he could have said you can own them for any time for whatever, blah blah. He
Right,
could have
right.
had
But what
no
else does he
rules,
say in that?
and so
What else does
there's
he say in that?
rules and
What does he
regulations.
say about the slave that wants to keep his wife at the end of the 7 years? What does that slave have to do?
Well, if the slave wants
What
to
does
keep
that
his
slave have to do?
yeah, if the slave wants to keep
If
his
he wants to
wife, then
keep his wife, yep,
he has
he
to
has
announce his
to
allegiance to his
okay, he has to
master.
stay a slave. Yeah.
And
So you were conveniently not going to point out that part.
well, it wasn't
So
relevant to
why?
what I was saying. My point
How
was
does no? So
there are
here's
rules and
right,
regulations. That's my
right.
point.
That God set forth. Couldn't he
Yeah,
just say
and
that this
I'm
isn't permissible? Why would he set
yeah,
forth?
like I said, he could give us complete moral perfection rules at the very beginning, for all of us to uphold to in
Sure.
perpetuity.
So
But that's not what
why
happened. Like I
rules and
said, it was a
guidelines?
gradual.
Why rules and guidelines about slavery, but outright banning homosexuality?
Well, like I said, I don't know what reasons he chose for which things. I'm not God. I just
Okay.
know
Right.
that a lot of these rules and a lot of the Levitical law was shadows and types for what was to come later in a better covenant, and so what we have now. So I
Right.
don't know why I don't know why shellfish and not cuttlefish. I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not God, and we're not Jewish. We don't have to uphold to these laws either. But
Right,
this
except for the
was
fact that Jesus said he wasn't going to change not jot nor tittle of the old
yeah,
law. But
he would fulfill the law, which
yeah,
he
so
did.
more on homosexuality. It's natural, it's a norm. Statistically, it produces either equal or better outcomes than heterosexual couples. For instance, like male households actually have like the highest income in America, for instance. So, what is the religious justification for what I would call homophobia, right? But for not allowing gay marriage or whatnot, other than literally, it just boils down to it makes you guys uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's what to make sure the question is just why no gay
Like I
marriage
obviously,
or
yeah, like I obviously understand just like it's based in your spirituality, but like what is the reasoning given that it's both natural and norm and statistically produces better or equal outcomes?
yeah, I mean the reasoning would be that marriage is defined as um a man and a woman coming into unity, um and we define love as Catholics as willing the good of the other. So both of them are willing the good of the other and trying to
Right. But
sanctify them and get them
why is what
to
I'm asking.
heaven. What do you
Why
mean
is it
why?
defined? Why specifically is it defined man and woman?
That's I mean that's divine revelation. That's how God defined it.
Right. But why?
I I'm not God. Why did why did you wear that blue shirt? You would have to tell me. God would have to tell us. I can't explain divine revelation from the mind of God. I'm not the mind of God.
Okay. So do you often in your life believe things without reason?
It's not I mean it's not without reason. I have a lot of reasons to believe it because I have a lot of reasons to believe the Catholic Church.
Like, so, okay, hold on. You said that you believe that gay people can't get married because
Yes.
marriage is defined as a man and a woman,
Yes.
but you don't know why. So you
What do you
believe
mean I
that
don't know
marriage
why? I don't know why what?
because God hasn't
I
revealed
don't know
it.
why he defined it that way?
Yeah. And
Yeah, but what is the
yet you
relevance to
believe
that?
it. Yet you believe that it's true.
Yeah, because I believe
So
the
you have no
person who
reason.
told.
It's just
No, because I believe the person who told it to me. It's like
right,
saying my
right,
if I go to take my
right.
car to the shop and they tell me my carburetor broke, I don't know if that's a real thing. My
So
carburetor broke. I don't know why,
okay,
but I still
so
believe that they
so you should believe any claim from an
no.
arbiter in which you trust.
From an arbiter in which you trust. I mean, that
Yes,
would be trust.
any claim without evidence or anything else. Anything from
Depends
anyone you
on. I
trust.
mean, it's gonna depends on trust how much, I guess. But
Right. So
yeah, I mean,
like you
somebody that you would trust fully, then yeah, but not if you don't trust them fully.
so okay, so someone you trust fully can never lie to you.
If you trust them fully, they can lie to you, but you trust them.
Okay.
That's. I mean, it's like my wife could be cheating on me, but I
You
trust that
don't
she
think
isn't.
that's problematic to believe someone without
No,
evidence,
because no.
reason, or anything, just
I mean,
because
it's not
you
without
trust
evidence. Like
them?
I said,
It is without evidence.
no, because they have proof of
Trusting the
concept.
person telling
They have
you,
proof of concept because they've shown me other things that are true and that I that I've witnessed as true, and so they have a track record. So it's
they
not
also say
based on
things that are
nothing.
false, though, right? God said things that's not
N-
true.
not from my point of view. No, I wouldn't
Okay,
say
so
that.
the earth came before the sun.
I don't think that that was literal. Literal. The Bible is
Oh,
analogical.
oh,
The
okay,
Bible
right,
is
right.
analogical
So how do
because
you, okay, so then there's a good one. How do you differentiate between what's literal and not?
yeah, I mean that's what the church is for.
Okay, the church who has interpreted it many things wrong, right?
Yeah, but not dogmatically. Only
Okay,
personal
so
opinions.
why did the church not believe that the sun came before the earth?
Like I said, I mean
Because it
the
was in the Bible,
church.
right? Because they
No.
dogmatically believed what was in the Bible. That's exactly why they
I
pushed
mean, it's
back
not a
against
dogma.
Yahweh,
Like I said, they don't
right?
dogmatize science. So that's just a bunch of people having individual beliefs who are in the same institution, but they're not. It's not like a law of the institution that you must believe this. That's not one of the beliefs.
Sure. So that kind of goes into my next question. Shouldn't the correct position be I will believe X claim, any position once the evidence warrants it, rather than your religious faith kind of leading you to I will believe X claim despite what the evidence warrants because of who told me?
Well, I don't know about despite what the evidence warrants. So there's nothing that I believe despite evidence in the contrary, that the church requires me to believe. So, um, what was the root question there?
Shouldn't the correct position be you will believe X position or claim once the evidence warrants it?
I mean, I think that's a reasonable starting point for
Okay.
sure.
So then, I mean, that just contradicts what you just said, though, because you don't have
Well, no, because
evidence to warrant
no, I
that
do.
marriage
You're
is a man or
discounting.
a woman.
No, you're discounting because so let's take it this way. For
That's not
instance,
evidence. Okay, wait here. No, let's start here. What's evidence to you? What do you define evidence as?
oh, uh, I would probably just use the Google definition, whatever that would say. I mean, evidence is I don't know what word to use. Objects, the available body of facts or information that indicate whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. That would
Right,
be a decent.
right. So divine
Uh,
revelation isn't a fact, right? That's a faith thing. You believing
well,
divine revelation is a faith thing.
well, okay. So the problem is you're starting too far down the line because you have to start with why did I come to believe the church, and that is based on historical attestation and historical fact, the same way that I would believe that Abraham Lincoln existed. And so we have to start further back in the line to get to, well, I accept these bodies of
Right,
facts, and these bodies of facts necessitate this body of facts.
except for all the parts that the church has gotten wrong historically that you just said doesn't matter because it's not
What do
in
you? I
the
didn't.
very niche thing that you said is the only part you guys care about.
You're no, you're mixing. They didn't get their historical documentation wrong. They got their understanding of science wrong on a personal level. The individuals of the church did, but that's
Well, they
completely
also
separate.
just dogmatically denied reality with all evidence in front of them for many years in terms of like heliocentrism and geocentrism
Yeah,
specifically.
I mean,
But in terms of other things,
what's that have to do with
divine
me?
creation over evolution, I mean, that's one we're still fighting. But I think the church is kind of like, I don't even know. I think the churches, they don't, there's not at least a big thing for me anymore, but that used to be a big thing. And trying to get it in schools, in
Oh,
terms
I
of
mean, that's not.
science
Yeah,
taught in
that
schools over
creation is.
evolution.
Yeah, like young Earth creationism is typically orthodox or evangelical thing. It's not really like I said, you can believe that as a Catholic, but it's not. We don't dogmatize science.
No.
We don't. That's not our domain. That's just not our domain. We wouldn't dogmatize
I know
science.
I get it. You've gotten it wrong so many times. You guys stay away from it. I would too. But the
No, I
last
mean it's just not
question,
part of the authority.
right. The last question I have is if Catholicism is to you the strongest like foundation or source of morality of truth or whatever word you would use that for, why do you think specifically in terms of like the Catholic Church with priests and stuff that sexual abuse against children is such a big problem? If what they believe is supposed to be the best source for morality, why is such immoral acts disproportionately common?
Well, I don't know that it is disproportionately common to
It is
what to what? What are you saying? To
to
who?
priests, like priests disproportionately commit sexual abuses against children.
I mean, disproportionate based on
Catholic,
what? To
Catholic,
who?
comparatively to any other
To
population.
to any other subgroup in the world?
If
Is that
you
what
go
you're
by
saying?
like, yes, yeah, like if you, comparatively to other categories, like religious categories, jobs, like they do so more than teachers, they do so more than
I don't.
like in the military, they do so more than caregivers. They
I
do
don't know that
in
I
other
would
religions.
agree with this when there's a giant religion called Islam that legally allows for you to marry 8 year olds. So I just wouldn't agree with this. I just don't think it's
Sure.
possible.
So
I'd say
then,
Islam is much more dangerous for little girls and little
right.
kids
So
than it.
your answer to
But
the disproportionate sexual abuse problems within Catholicism is to point
that's
to
not my.
Islam. Is to point
That's,
to Islam.
no, I'm saying I
Okay, well then
reject
what's your
that part
answer?
of the question.
What's your
But
answer?
why is it? But the question of why is there sexual abuse is, I
Disproportionately
mean,
so.
yeah, I'm not accepting that. But why
Well,
is there
so there's
sexual?
a study, and I think it was from France from 2005 to 2016, and it found over 300,000 victims in different Catholic churches among priests. Do you think that's normal for 11 to 12 years?
I wouldn't have any idea. But I can
Okay.
answer the question
Would
of
you
why
consider
there's.
that disproportionate?
I
Just
wouldn't
in,
have any idea. I don't
okay.
know.
Okay.
I would have to look at a lot of information. But like I
Okay.
said,
Do you think that's a
there's
problem, that many?
yeah, of course. Any
Okay.
one is a problem.
So why do you
One,
think that's a problem in the Catholic Church if Catholicism's
yeah,
the
yeah,
best source for morality?
yeah, because it's made of uh, men who are have an inclination towards sinning and being bad and doing
But they're
horrible things.
priests. How are priests chosen in
Doesn't
Catholicism?
well, I mean, you go to through seminary, so you just decide to join seminary, and then you would have like a spiritual director who would be working with you,
So
and
they
discerning
have
if it feels like you're if you feel the call or whatever. But I mean,
so they have a call. They have spiritual connection or communication with,
yeah, I mean,
our
it's
Lord and Savior.
discerning. I mean, we would hope. I mean, it's discerning, so you can discern incorrectly.
So
Obviously,
why
you
wouldn't our
make a
Lord and
mistake.
Savior, why wouldn't God, who is all knowing and all powerful, why would he give the call to people who would sexually abuse children?
Well, all knowing and all powerful. These are analogical terms, so I don't accept it as some magic man who just goes boom, boom, boom. That's not what we believe. We believe that God is the ground of
Okay.
all beings. So it's not. It's not really like that.
Right, but isn't there
Um,
multiple scripture like in Matthew and others where he says he sees all, where he says he claims to know all?
yeah, but every word of the scripture is analogical. So
Okay, so
we
none
have to
of
know
it's
what
literal.
this means.
So none of it's
Uh,
literal.
none of it's no. I wouldn't say any
So
of
how do we
it's
know God said any of this?
specific. Well, define said, but like I
Right.
said,
How do we know
I
any of it comes from God if
hold
none of
on.
it's
Let me answer
literal?
the question about the priests. All
Okay,
right, like
sorry,
I would
sorry.
say, I told you you're starting to ahead. You have to start with the church,
Mhm.
and once they're believable, that leads to more conclusions. But going back to the priest thing, like I said, Judas, for instance, betrayed Christ and was in his top 12 guys. Peter denied him 3 times and then became the first pope. These are fallen people. That's the beauty of Catholicism is that God uses fallen people and reforms them
Right.
and
Because
uses
God
them to
set
do
Jesus
good,
up to
even if
make
they
a point.
choose to do bad due to sin. And so, yeah, I mean, there are people who do horrible, horrible things in the Catholic Church.
Who have a
It's
calling from
bad.
Jesus.
Who think that they have a calling for Jesus. They don't
So
necessarily
none
have
of
a
them do.
calling.
None, not a single priest who has ever committed sexual
I
abuse
mean, I don't know. I'm
has
just
had a
saying.
calling from
I'm
Christ.
just saying we can't say that every priest has a calling as
Right.
much as they think that they
But do
have
you
a
think it does
calling.
that sound logically possible to you that every priest to ever have sexual abused a child just is lying?
No, no, no. I'm like
Okay.
I was saying.
So
we
you do
have free
agree at least
will.
one.
We have free will. We can sin, and God is a gentleman. He's not going to force you to do anything. He's not going to do anything against your consent. So if you want to freely choose to say, you know what, screw you, God, and I'm going to break all the rules, you can do that. You're, dealing with your own destiny at that point as far as where you're going to end up, and I
Why are
think you would end up
priests
apart from God. But
why are priests more likely than atheists to commit sexual abuse against children?
I mean, I think that those are hard categories to compare. Like, which atheists who never talk to any kids, or don't go to schools, or don't work at schools, or don't go to whatever, or are never around children, versus priests who
Well,
are around
like I
families.
said, I
Like,
know
there's
for
a
a
lot of
fact,
different factors that
right,
would go into
I
that.
know for a fact priests are like they're almost 2 or 3 times
Sure.
more likely than teachers, right?
Sure.
That's one I have here pulled up. So like teachers work directly with kids. I know they're more
I
like
mean, it's
caregivers.
very possible. Again, I'm just speculating here. This is not based off of any real research or anything. I mean,
Mhm.
but it's very possible that for some reason people think that they can infiltrate and join this, and this will give them cover.
Mhm.
There's situations like confession is a little bit too public to really, like, it's private, but it's public usually at the same time. It's hard to explain, but if you know confession, like, other people are in the line, so it would be hard to, like,
Yeah.
it shouldn't last more than a few minutes, so that would be weird if it was like going on long. So that's probably not the place. But I mean, they might think that this is a good. There might be creepos out there who think, let me go through this because I can be around altar boys, bunch of little boys. There might be people who think that this organization will give them cover, or maybe because of the scandals, and because we know bishops who have given a priest covers when they shouldn't have. Maybe they think that they can abuse. I don't know why people join the priesthood to not follow any of the rules. But
All right.
that's,
I,
I mean, I don't know why people do what they do, but
I have one last quick question.
yeah.
What do you think atheism does better than Catholicism? One thing.
um, I mean, atheism doesn't do anything. Um, it's not a monolithic viewpoint the same way that Catholicism is.
Okay, what
So,
do you think is something that Catholicism does wrong that doesn't exist in those with the lack of faith?
let me think of some of our maybe prudential judgments or stuff that I might not agree
Yeah,
with.
like the homophobia, the misogyny, the
I
Islamophobia,
mean,
the
there's no, I mean,
this goes on.
Muslim. I mean, Islam is a evil religion, so I have no problem saying that openly. Like I said, marrying 8 year olds is insane. Let me
I think
think.
Islam and Christianity are both evil. I would be comfortable saying that.
Trying to think.
I think all religion's evil.
That's
I think
not
the
as
institution of
wrong.
religion is evil. I think it's evil to try to like force people to believe something that isn't true.
I mean, yeah, forcing is evil. Um,
When you're like, yeah,
and we've
you're gonna
disavowed
go to
that
hell.
dogmatically. That's not forcing. Consequences exist. So
Right, yeah. When
what
you
is it? Not
levy,
cancel culture. It's consequence culture or something. So yeah, you do something
yeah,
evil, you get consequence. Um,
that's what I think is evil. Yeah.
Getting consequences for doing evil things.
Levying is sort of like, well, a false power imbalance, though. Like, you're gonna burn in eternal damnation if you don't believe an
Well,
untrue thing that comes with a lot of baggage.
so we
That's
don't
like
believe in the
the bad outcome.
evangelical, circles of fire. Hell is separation from God. Now, what that means or how that'll be, we'll see.
Right.
But you're just saying, I don't want to be with you, God. And so again, God is a gentleman. He doesn't force anybody to go.
Block it.
So,
Yeah.
but so it's up to you. If you want to go, you can. If you don't have to. Something that I would need time. That's a big question because I'd have to go through things that we've done or do or believe that I think maybe are problematic, that aren't
Yeah, I
dogmatic.
wonder which one you could choose. It's not like there's a lot.
I mean, nothing jumps to my mind. I think
Right.
everything that the church teaches
Mhm.
dogmatically is based.
Right.
Um, so I'd have to think of the non-dogmas or the
Mhm.
prudential judgments. And
Okay.
recently, they've been on the liberal side. Immigrants, being against the Trump immigration stuff, being against the climate change. I don't know. I wanted to bring it up, but Pope Leo blessed a chunk of ice for climate change, and people were freaking out. So most of the stuff recently has been pretty base. So I'd have to go further back in time to think of maybe some prudential judgments that I did. I know, like, some of the priests, individual priests and bishops, have been soft on communism and soft on The Nazis, the church at large has never supported those, but individuals. So I would say that's bad. And there's some secular people who don't support those things.
The church should support communism, but Nazis,
No,
I think
church.
Nazis are probably more in line with with the church than
Not at all. Not
communism.
at all. Like I said, we're super Catholic. It's if
I
it
don't know.
wasn't for abortion, it would basically be dogmatic to be a Democrat. I think
No way.
because of our teachings.
No, no,
Because
you guys don't
the only
have,
I guess and the
you guys are not, you guys think like women are lesser than.
no, definitely
You
not. We
guys
think
cannot be liberals. You cannot,
no,
as
we
long as
definitely
you
think
have
women
the
are
opinion of
equal in dignity.
they just can't
Um,
lead, or they shouldn't go to combat, you
equal in
can't be in leadership
dignity, but different in
positions.
vocation.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
and
That's a question I should
I would say nobody's honored women more than the church would be what
have.
I would say. With Mary being the most holy, most blessed, most beautiful woman of all time, and to be a great role model and representative for
Woo!
young women everywhere.
I think they
So
honor women all the time by forcing rape victims
giving,
married to term.
I mean, no, not letting people kill people is not forcing. But
But
yeah,
yeah, no, yeah, if you guys enjoyed, let us know in the comments. There's another hot seat. Maybe we'll let Swa grill me on atheism or something so he can get some get back. Let us know what you think of his beliefs. Let us know what you think of my questions of the military rally, the Saudi controversy, the Israel-Hamas stuff. Like I always say, whatever platform you're on, Spotify, YouTube, Substack, like, subscribe if that's an option, add us to your playlist, whatever, so you don't miss us. We're here every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until next week, peace.
peace.